In this talk, we're going to look at the diversity of life present on Earth. There are many living organisms on Earth, and to define a living organism, the simplest way is to say that they are made up of organized structures called cells that have the ability to utilize energy to grow, reproduce, and respond to their environment. For life to be formed on Earth, it was really imperative to have appropriate conditions. And one of these appropriate conditions was the formation of oceans. In order to form cells on Earth, many events had to have occurred. These include the formation of simple organic molecules that would serve as the building blocks of macromolecules that are found in living systems. These simple organic molecules could have been formed in deep sea vents in primitive Earth or through the molecules that are present in the atmosphere. These are some of the ideas that have been proposed on scientists in order to explain the formation of simple organic molecules on primitive Earth. Once these simple organic molecules were formed, they had to have found a way to assemble to form complex organic molecules. In addition to forming complex organic molecules like macromolecules, it was also imperative to form self-replicating molecules, since all living organisms tend to replicate their genetic material. It is thought that on primitive Earth, the first self-replicating molecule that was formed was ribonucleic acids, or RNA. Once self-replicating molecules were formed, there was a need to form self-replicating primitive cells, and it was thought that this was formed by having the macromolecules get packaged into these structures called as vesicles. Once the macromolecules that are self-replicating are present in vesicles, these vesicles would have the ability to divide to form more vesicles with self-replicating molecules, thereby giving rise to the first primitive cell. It is then thought that these primitive cells evolved with time and gave rise to the diversity of life that we observe today on Earth. Thus, it is estimated that about 3.5 to 4 billions of years ago, the first life forms appeared on Earth. The first living organisms on Earth are prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are unicellular organisms that don't have any type of membrane-bound organelles. Thus, they are different from another class of organisms called eukaryotes that tend to have complex cellular structures that are enclosed by membranes, and thus they show the presence of membrane-bound organelles like nuclei, endoplasmic reticulum, so on and so forth. There are many diverse organisms on Earth, and scientists have come up with a way to classify organisms into different groups. The branch of science that determines the classification of organisms is called taxonomy. The first taxon for the classification of organisms is called as a domain. There are 3 domains in which living organisms can be classified. The first domain that arose from a common ancestor is bacteria. These bacteria come under prokaryotes and are considered to be the simplest forms of living organisms. Another domain that also includes prokaryotic organisms is archaea. It is thought that eukaryotic organisms that are more complex than prokaryotes evolved from an ancestor that had given rise to the domain of archaea. And these eukaryotes are all classified into the domain of eukarya. After domain, the next taxon is the kingdom. There are 6 main kingdoms of life, and the first one that we're going to look at is eubacteria. The kingdom of eubacteria comes under the domain of bacteria. It includes all bacterial organisms that are unicellular in nature. The second kingdom is Archaebacteria, which comes under the domain of Archaea. All organisms in the kingdom of Archaebacteria are also unicellular. However, they do have some features that are different from bacteria, and hence they have their own kingdom. The organisms present in eubacteria and Archaebacteria are prokaryotes. The next kingdom that evolved is the kingdom of Protista. All organisms in the kingdom of Protista are eukaryotes, and hence the kingdom of Protista comes under the domain of Eukarya. Protista is considered as the most diverse kingdom, and we do have most of the organisms being unicellular organisms. However, there are some multicellular organisms like algae. Some of the organisms that belong to the kingdom of Protista gave rise to organisms that come under the kingdom of fungi. The kingdom of fungi includes organisms like yeasts, molds, and mushrooms. Most organisms are multicellular, however, we do see some unicellular organisms like yeast in the kingdom of fungi. All the organisms in the kingdom of fungi are eukaryotic. Some organisms that are present in the kingdom of Protista gave rise to organisms that are now in the kingdom of Plantae. The kingdom of Plantae includes all plants found on Earth, which are multicellular organisms that are eukaryotes. It is also thought that an ancestor of Protista gave rise to the organisms that are found in the kingdom of Animalia, which include all the animals who are multicellular eukaryotes. Thus, in the domain of Eukarya, we can see the presence of 4 kingdoms: Protista, fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. So far, we have seen the taxa domain and kingdom, and there are many other taxonomic groups available in order to classify living organisms. These include the phylums, the subphylum, the class, the order, the family, the genus, and the species. Let us now look at an example of an organism that has been classified using this system. Let us look at the classification of a squirrel whose scientific name is Cirrus carolinensis. This squirrel belongs to the domain of Eukarya, where all eukaryotes are present, and it belongs to the kingdom of Animalia, where all animals are classified. Further along, it belongs to the phylum of Chordata because it has a notochord, which is a structure that is seen in all chordates during the early stages of development. The squirrel is in the subphylum of Vertebrata because it has a vertebral column, and it belongs to the class of Mammalia because it is a mammal. It is in the order of Rodentia, and hence other rodents are also part of this order, and hence squirrels are related to other rodents like hamsters, mice, rats, guinea pigs, so on and so forth. It belongs to the family of Cirridae and the genus of Cirrus, and finally the species is carolinensis. And thus, we are able to see the taxonomic classification of the squirrel, Cirrus carolinensis. Similarly, humans have also been classified into their appropriate taxonomic group, which begins with the domain of Eukarya, followed by the kingdom of Animalia. We also are chordates and hence come under the phylum of Chordata and the subphylum of vertebrata. We are mammals, and hence come under the class of Mammalia and the order of primates. We are in the family of Hominidae and the genus of Homo, and we belong to the species as sapiens. Thereby, our biological name is Homo sapiens. Similarly, humans have also been classified into their appropriate taxonomic group, which begins with the domain of Eukarya, followed by the kingdom of Animalia. We also are chordates and hence come under the phylum of Chordata and the subphylum of Vertebrata. We are mammals and hence come under the class of Mammalia and the order of primates. We are in the family of Hominidae and the genus of Homo, and we belong to the species as sapiens. Thereby, our biological name is Homo sapiens. With this, we come to the end of our talk, where we learned about the different steps needed for the formation of cells, followed by the different domains of life, as well as the different kingdoms of life. We also looked at the order of evolution of all the kingdoms, as well as how the classification of living organisms is done.